The Galactic Sneer. The Galactic Assembly's grand hall buzzed with energy. It was a spectacle unlike any other, a gathering of alien species from across the galaxy, united under one roof. Tonight, however, the focus was on a single species, humanity, or rather, the ridicule of it. A towering alien with scales that shimmered like molten silver stood at the center podium. High Chancellor Vorix of the Trinaxian Empire smirked, his voice booming as he addressed the assembly. And so, humanity, in their infinite wisdom, dares to claim they are equals among us. Laughter erupted across the chamber. Yet their technology remained centuries behind even the most primitive members of this council. The laughter spread like wildfire, a chorus of alien voices mocking the humans. Representatives from various species whispered insults, trading barbs about Earth's supposed backwardness. Humanity's ambassador, a middle-aged man named Richard Gale, sat stiffly in his seat, his face unreadable. He endured the jeers in silence, gripping the edges of his chair tightly. This is their solution to galactic diplomacy. Vorix continued, holding up a crude hologram of Earth's outdated starships, metal coffins flying on fumes, and they expect us to take them seriously. More laughter roared through the hall. Back on Earth, the broadcast played live, reaching billions. Citizens watched in anger and humiliation as their species was ridiculed before the galaxy. But not everyone was discouraged. Deep within a fortified military base on the lunar surface, Admiral Kane stood watching the same broadcast. He was a tall man with sharp features and piercing blue eyes, his uniform pressed to perfection. Around him, a team of officers monitored holographic displays and star charts, their faces grim. The insults from the assembly only fueled his determination. "They think we're weak," Kane muttered, his voice low and steady. "Let them laugh." An officer hesitated before speaking. "Admiral, with respect, our forces, they are no match for the Trinaxians. Their fleet outnumbers ours 10-1, and their technology." Kane raised a hand to silence him. "Outnumbered doesn't mean defeated, Lieutenant. Remember that." Behind him, a massive screen displayed classified schematics of humanity's secret weapon, the Phantom Fleet. It was a project years in the making, hidden from prying alien eyes. Unlike Earth's traditional ships, these vessels were equipped with advanced cloaking systems, capable of vanishing from sight and sensors. They were humanity's ace in the hole. But the fleet was untested, and deploying it now would be a gamble. Kane knew the risks, but he also understood the stakes. The Galactic Assembly's mockery wasn't just words, it was a warning. If humanity didn't prove its strength soon, it would only be a matter of time before the more aggressive species decided to conquer Earth outright. "Status on the fleet?" Kane asked, his tone sharp. A young officer replied, "All ships are operational, sir. Cloaking systems functioning at 100%. They're waiting for your command." Kane nodded, his mind racing. The Phantom Fleet was designed for stealth, for surgical strikes deep in enemy territory. If used correctly, it could turn the tide of any conflict. But first, they needed a target, a show of force to silence their enemies. As Kane considered his options, the broadcast from the Galactic Assembly took a darker turn. Vorix stepped closer to the camera, his eyes gleaming with malice. "If humanity cannot meet the standards of this council," he declared, "then perhaps they have no place in the galaxy at all." The Trinaxian Empire has already begun preparations to annex their territory. It is only a matter of time. The hall erupted in applause, and Vorix basked in the approval of his peers. Ambassador Gale stood abruptly, his voice cutting through the noise. "You underestimate us," he said firmly, his words ringing with defiance. Vorix sneered. "Underestimate you? Ambassador, I assure you, we've evaluated your capabilities thoroughly. The results were unimpressive." Gale didn't flinch. "You'll regret this." The assembly burst into laughter once more, but Kane felt a flicker of pride. Gale's courage mirrored the spirit of humanity itself, unyielding even in the face of overwhelming odds. As the broadcast ended, Kane turned to his officers. "Send word to the fleet," he ordered. "It's time we remind the galaxy what humanity is capable of." The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Officers exchanged nervous glances, but quickly sprang into action, relaying orders and activating systems. Kane watched them work, his expression cold and focused. He knew this mission would change everything. Success would earn humanity the respect it deserved, but failure could mean extinction. Far away, hidden in the void of space, the Phantom Fleet began to move. Sleek, black ships slipped silently through the darkness, their cloaking systems rendering them invisible. They were ghosts, unseen and unstoppable, carrying humanity's hopes on their wings. And as the galaxy laughed, Admiral Kane smiled to himself. "Let them mock us," he said quietly. "They won't see us coming." Shadows in the void. The Trinaxian patrol ship drifted through the emptiness of space, its scanners sweeping lazily over the asteroid field. To the crew aboard, it was just another routine assignment, a mundane chore that didn't warrant their full attention. They joked and bantered, oblivious to the shadows that danced just beyond their reach. Unseen and unheard, the Phantom Fleet moved. The sleek, black ships glided through the void, their advanced cloaking systems bending light and scrambling enemy sensors. They were predators in their element, and the patrol ship was prey. Admiral Kane stood aboard the command ship, the silent Requiem. The vessel's bridge was dimly lit, the glow of holographic displays casting eerie patterns on the walls. Kane's gaze was fixed on the tactical screen, where a faint outline of the Trinaxian ship appeared, unaware of its impending doom. "Range to target?" Kane asked, his voice a calm contrast to the tension in the room. 2,000 clicks and closing," replied Lieutenant Sarah, the fleet's top tactical officer. She adjusted her headset, her fingers dancing over the console. "They haven't detected us." "Good," Kane said. "Let's keep it that way. Hold position and monitor their movements." The bridge fell silent as the crew watched the Trinaxian patrol ship on their monitors. Every detail mattered: its speed, trajectory, and the faint energy signature of its scanners. The Phantom Fleet's success relied on precision, and Kane wouldn't tolerate mistakes. In the quiet, a low hum began to build. It was faint at first, barely noticeable, but it grew louder with each passing second. Kane frowned, his eyes narrowing. "Report," he ordered. Lieutenant Sarah's face went pale. "Admiral, there's an anomaly." Kane turned sharply to her station. "What kind of anomaly?" She hesitated, her hand shaking slightly as she adjusted the controls. It's a pulse, sir. Low frequency. It's rippling through the asteroid field, bouncing off the debris. I think." Before she could finish, the tactical display flickered. A bright red ping appeared on the screen, marking their position. "They've spotted us," shouted another officer. The bridge erupted into chaos. Alerts blared, and holographic displays lit up with incoming data. Kane's mind raced. The Trinaxians weren't supposed to have this level of detection technology. Not yet. Someone had underestimated them. "Deploy countermeasures," Kane barked. "Maintain cloaking and reposition the fleet. We're not engaging yet." The silent Requiem shifted smoothly, its engines humming as it adjusted course. Other ships in the Phantom Fleet followed suit, spreading out in a pattern designed to confuse enemy sensors. Still, the patrol ship was closing in, its scanners sweeping more aggressively now. The crew of the patrol ship didn't know what they had detected, but they knew it wasn't natural. Captain Urich, a burly Trinaxian with deep scars across his face, leaned forward in his chair, his clawed fingers tapping the armrest. "Prepare weapons," he ordered. "Whatever's out there, it's not alone." His crew scrambled to comply, their previous laxness replaced by sharp focus. Urich's ship wasn't built for battle. It was a scout, designed for speed and surveillance. But if it came to a fight, he wouldn't back down. Back on the silent Requiem, Kane studied the enemy's movements. They were probing, testing, trying to lock onto a target they couldn't see. It was a game of cat and mouse, and the humans couldn't afford to be the mouse for long. "Lieutenant Sarah," Kane said, his tone measured, "what's our nearest cover?" She glanced at the display. "Asteroid cluster. 400 clicks to port. We can use it to mask our energy signature." Kane nodded. "Relay the coordinates to the fleet. All ships, move on my mark." The Phantom fleet adjusted course, slipping toward the asteroid field like shadows merging with the darkness. The patrol ship followed, its scanners working overtime. For every move Kane made, Captain Urich responded, determined not to let his prey escape. As the ships entered the asteroid cluster, tension reached its peak. The debris field was dense, with jagged rocks spinning wildly. A single mistake could mean disaster for either side. The Phantom fleet weaved through the chaos, their cloaking systems flickering under the strain. "Hold steady," Kane said, his voice calm but firm. "No sudden movements." The patrol ship wasn't as cautious. Its thrusters burned brightly as it powered through the field, closing the gap. Urich growled, his frustration growing. He could feel the presence of something, even if his scanners couldn't pinpoint it. Then it happened. A glint of light. A reflection off a cloaked Phantom ship. It was only for a split second, but it was enough. "They're there," Urich roared. "All weapons, fire." The patrol ship unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts, lighting up the asteroid field. The Phantom fleet dodged expertly, their cloaking systems struggling to compensate. Kane gritted his teeth, his hands gripping the edge of the command console. "Lieutenant, deploy the decoy swarm," he ordered. Sarah nodded, pressing a sequence of buttons. Dozens of small drones launched from the Phantom ships, their cloaking systems mimicking the signatures of the fleet. They scattered in every direction, creating chaos on the Trinaxian scanners. Captain Urich snarled as his ship's systems were overwhelmed. "What is this trickery?" The Phantom fleet seized the opportunity. In the confusion, they slipped deeper into the asteroid field, vanishing once more. Urich's frustration boiled over, but there was nothing he could do. On the silent requiem, Kane allowed himself a small smile. The first test of the Phantom fleet had been a success, but he knew this was only the beginning. "Let them chase shadows," he said quietly. "They'll never catch us." Betrayal among the stars. The Phantom fleet floated in the silent embrace of a dense nebula, hidden from even the most advanced scanners. On board the silent requiem, Admiral Kane studied the holographic display in front of him. The Trinaxian patrol ship was no longer a threat, but Kane's instincts told him this was only a taste of what was coming. A soft chime broke his focus. "Admiral, we're receiving an encrypted transmission," Lieutenant Sarah reported. Her voice was laced with caution. "It's from outside the fleet." Kane frowned. The Phantom fleet's communication channels were supposed to be untraceable. "Source: unknown, sir," Sarah replied. "But the signature matches galactic assembly codes." "Put it through," Kane ordered, his voice steady. The hologram flickered to life, revealing a shadowy figure. The alien's features were obscured, but its voice was clear, a smooth, calculated tone that carried the weight of secrets. "Admiral Kane," it began. "You don't know me, but I know you, and I have information that could save Earth." Kane narrowed his eyes. "Why contact me? Why not go through official channels?" The figure chuckled softly. "Because your so-called allies in the Galactic Assembly aren't who you think they are. Some have already sold you out to the Trinaxians. If you don't act now, Earth will fall." The room fell silent. Kane exchanged a glance with Sarah, who looked just as skeptical. "And you expect me to trust you?" Kane asked. "You could be setting a trap." The figure leaned forward, their holographic form flickering ominously. "Trust me or don't, Admiral. But here's what I can tell you. The Trinaxian invasion fleet is assembling near the Eurasian Rift. They've received precise coordinates for Earth's defenses from a human ally." The weight of the accusation hung in the air. Kane's jaw tightened, but he kept his composure. You're claiming there's a traitor among us. I'm not claiming. I'm stating, the figure replied. I can give you the details, but you'll need to retrieve me from Callan Station before the Trinaxians find me. Kane leaned back, his mind racing. Callan Station was a notorious hub for smugglers and mercenaries, a lawless place where even the Galactic Assembly's influence was limited. Extracting this informant would be dangerous, but if their intel was accurate, it could be humanity's only chance to survive. Give me your location, Kane said finally. We'll come for you. The figure nodded, sending coordinates before the transmission abruptly cut out. The bridge remained quiet for a moment, the crew processing what they had just heard. Admiral, Sarah said cautiously, this could be a trap. Or it could be the only lead we have, Kane replied. He turned to his officers. Prepare a strike team. We're heading to Callan Station. Hours later, Callan Station. The Phantom Fleet's stealth shuttle glided silently into Callan Station's docking bay, its cloaking systems disengaging just before landing. Kane and his team of 6 operatives stepped off the ramp, blending seamlessly into the chaotic crowd of aliens and humans that populated the station. The air was thick with the smell of oil and burning circuits. Voices shouted in a dozen different languages as merchants haggled over illegal goods. Armed mercenaries patrolled the area, their eyes scanning for potential threats or easy targets. Kane adjusted his civilian jacket, keeping his sidearm hidden beneath it. Beside him, Lieutenant Sarah wore a hooded cloak, her sharp gaze taking in every detail. The rest of the team spread out, their movements precise but inconspicuous. Contact confirmed on Deck 7. Section D. Sarah whispered through her comlink. We're being watched. Let them watch, Kane replied. But stay alert. As they made their way through the station, tension hung in the air. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every glance a potential enemy. The informant's directions led them to a small, dimly lit room tucked away in the station's labyrinthine corridors. Inside, the shadowy figure from the hologram awaited them. This time, their face was partially visible, a reptilian alien with sharp features and piercing yellow eyes. You came, they said, their voice calm but urgent. Talk fast, Kane said. If the Trinaxians are onto you, we don't have much time. The informant handed Kane a data chip. This contains the names of your betrayers and the location of the Trinaxian fleet. But I'm afraid I wasn't the only one tracking this information. As if on cue, the station's lights flickered. A loud metallic thud echoed through the corridors, followed by the unmistakable hum of Trinaxian energy weapons. The mercenaries in the station began shouting, scrambling for cover as the first plasma bolts ripped through the air. They're here, the informant hissed. You have to get me out of here. Kane didn't hesitate. Sarah, cover our retreat. Team, form up. The group moved quickly, weapons drawn as Trinaxian soldiers poured into the station. Their armor gleamed under the flickering lights, and their weapons sent blasts of energy into the crowd, sowing chaos. Civilians screamed and scattered, creating a perfect smokescreen for the Phantom operatives. Sarah took down 2 soldiers with precise shots, her rifle barely making a sound. Kane led the informant through the chaos, his team forming a protective perimeter. The Trinaxians were relentless, but the Phantom operatives were trained for situations like this. As they reached the shuttle bay, the informant stumbled, clutching their side. I've been hit, they gasped. Kane turned back, firing at the advancing Trinaxians. Get them on the shuttle. Now. The team managed to board the shuttle just as enemy fire rained down on them. Engines roared to life, and the vessel shot out of the docking bay, narrowly avoiding the explosions that followed. Aboard the silent Requiem, the informant lay on a medical bed, their breathing shallow but stable. Kane inserted the data chip into the command console, and the holographic display lit up with the information they had risked everything to retrieve. His eyes darkened as he read the names of the traitors, people he had trusted, who had sold Earth's future to the highest bidder. But it was the final entry that chilled him to the core. the location of the Trinaxian invasion fleet. "They've already begun their final preparations," Sarah said, her voice grim. "We're running out of time." Kane clenched his fists. "Then we'll strike first. The Phantom awakens." The Phantom fleet hovered in the shadows of the Eurasian rift, its black hulls blending seamlessly with the swirling chaos of the region. The rift was a dangerous expanse, filled with gravitational anomalies and unpredictable energy surges, a perfect hiding place for an armada, but also the perfect place to stage a surprise assault. On board the silent Requiem, Admiral Kane stood before a massive holographic display, studying the layout of the Trinaxian invasion fleet. Hundreds of ships were arrayed in precise formations, their engines glowing faintly against the backdrop of the rift. Carriers, battleships, and sleek interceptors formed a wall of destruction that seemed impenetrable. But Kane wasn't intimidated. He was calculating. "Report," Kane ordered, his voice sharp. Lieutenant Sarah stepped forward, her expression grim but focused. "Enemy fleet is holding position, sir. Their defensive perimeter is tight, but there are gaps near their supply lines." "Good," Kane said. "If we cut those lines, they'll falter." "How's our cloaking integrity?" "Fully operational," Sarah replied. "The fleet remains undetected." Kane nodded, his mind racing. This was their moment. The Trinaxians had overextended themselves, confident in their superiority. They didn't know what humanity had hidden in the shadows. "Begin Phase 1, Kane commanded. "Launch the Phantom swarms." In the void of the rift, from the silent Requiem and the other Phantom fleet ships, hundreds of small, drone-like vessels emerged, their movements precise and silent. These weren't ordinary drones. They were cloaked, equipped with advanced EMP charges, and designed to disrupt enemy systems without revealing their source. The drones spread out like a silent wave, infiltrating the Trinaxian fleet's outer perimeter. As they approached, their cloaking systems activated, making them invisible to scanners. The Trinaxians remained blissfully unaware, their crews focused on routine maintenance and patrols. The first wave struck without warning. Powerful EMP bursts detonated across the fleet, plunging several battleships into darkness. Engines sputtered, lights flickered, and weapon systems failed. Trinaxian officers shouted orders, their voices rising in panic as their ships became sitting ducks. On the bridge of the Trinaxian flagship, High Admiral Valok slammed a clawed hand against his console. "What is happening? Where are those energy surges coming from?" His crew scrambled to respond, their scanners overwhelmed by static. "Unknown, Admiral. It's as if the energy is coming from nowhere." Valok growled, his golden eyes narrowing. "This is no natural phenomenon. Find the source. Now." Back on the silent Requiem, Kane watched the chaos unfold on the holographic display, his expression unreadable. "Phase 1 is successful," Sarah reported. 20% of their fleet is disabled. Their response time is slower than expected. "They're overconfident," Kane said. "They think no one would dare challenge them here. Let's show them how wrong they are." Phase 2. Target their supply ships. The Phantom fleet moved as one, emerging briefly from the rift's cover to strike with precision. Laser cannons and torpedoes tore through the Trinaxian supply vessels, setting off chain reactions as fuel cells ignited. The resulting explosions lit up the void, casting eerie shadows across the battlefield. Trinaxian fighters scrambled to intercept the attackers, but the Phantom ships vanished just as quickly as they appeared, their cloaking systems reactivating before the enemy could lock on. "This is madness." Velox roared on the flagship. "They're ghosts. How can we fight what we cannot see?" Inside the Phantom fleet. For the pilots of the Phantom fleet, the battle was both exhilarating and terrifying. Their training had prepared them for this moment, but the stakes were higher than ever. Ensign Riley, a young pilot in the stealth fighter Wraith 7, gripped his controls tightly as he maneuvered through the chaos. "Stay sharp, Wraith Squad," Riley's squad leader called over the comms. "We're not here to engage directly. Hit and fade, just like we trained." Riley nodded, his heart pounding as he lined up a shot on a Trinaxian destroyer. With a press of a button, he unleashed a payload of torpedoes, then veered sharply to avoid the retaliatory fire. The destroyer erupted in flames, its hull splitting apart. "Target neutralized," Riley reported, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. The turning point. As the battle raged, the Phantom Fleet continued to dismantle the Trinaxian armada piece by piece. Kane's strategy was working. By targeting key assets and avoiding direct confrontations, they were sowing chaos and confusion among the enemy ranks. But the Trinaxians weren't entirely unprepared. Deep within their formation, a massive disc-shaped vessel powered up. It was an experimental sensor array, capable of emitting a wide-spectrum pulse designed to neutralize cloaking systems. On board the silent Requiem, alarms blared as the pulse began to spread. "Admiral, we have a problem," Sarah said urgently. "The Trinaxians have activated a cloaking disruptor. Our fleet's cover could be blown." Kane's jaw tightened. They'd been holding that in reserve. Smart, but not smart enough. He pointed to the display. "All ships redirect fire to that disruptor. Take it out before it fully powers up." The Phantom Fleet shifted its focus, converging on the disruptor. Trinaxian ships moved to protect the vessel, engaging the stealth fighters in a desperate attempt to buy time. The rift lit up with explosions and laser fire as the battle reached its peak. Riley and his squad dove into the fray, weaving through enemy fire to deliver the critical blow. With one final torpedo barrage, the disruptor's core overloaded, erupting in a blinding explosion that sent shockwaves across the battlefield. The Phantom Fleet disappeared once more, their cloaking systems intact. Victory in the shadows. On the Trinaxian flagship, High Admiral Velox stared at the chaos surrounding him. His once mighty fleet was in ruins, their lines broken and their supply chains severed. He clenched his fists, his pride shattered. They're not warriors," he muttered. "They're phantoms." On board the silent Requiem, Kane allowed himself a rare smile. The Trinaxians had underestimated humanity, and they had paid the price. "Let this be a lesson," he said quietly, more to himself than his crew. "You don't mock what you can't see coming." A game of shadows. The Eurasian rift was no longer silent. The battlefield was littered with debris from destroyed Trinaxian warships, their once mighty fleet reduced to scattered remnants. But despite the Phantom Fleet's early victories, the tide of the battle was shifting. On board the silent Requiem, Admiral Kane studied the tactical hologram with a grim expression. The Trinaxians had rallied, forming tighter formations to protect their remaining ships. Worse, their reinforcements were only hours away. A second invasion fleet, larger and more advanced than the first. "We've dealt a serious blow," Lieutenant Sarah said, her voice calm but tense. "But they're adapting, Admiral. Their countermeasures are improving." Kane nodded. "They're learning, and fast. That makes them dangerous." Before he could continue, an alarm blared. The hologram shifted to display a massive energy spike at the edge of the rift. A new Trinaxian vessel emerged from the swirling chaos, a towering warship unlike anything humanity had seen before. "What is that?" Sarah asked, her eyes widening. Kane's jaw tightened. The ship was bristling with advanced weaponry and a strange, pulsating device at its core. "It's not just a warship," he said. "That's a command carrier, and that core looks like a tactical disruptor." Sarah's face turned pale. "A disruptor that large could neutralize our cloaking systems fleet-wide." The room fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. If the disruptor activated, the Phantom Fleet's advantage would be lost, and they would be sitting ducks for the remaining Trinaxian forces. "Prepare for Phase 3, Kane ordered, his voice sharp. "We take that ship out before it powers up." The Battle of Shadows. The Phantom Fleet moved swiftly, closing in on the command carrier while maintaining their cloaked formation. The enemy ship loomed like a metal titan, its weapon systems already tracking for targets. Inside the carrier, High Admiral Valok stood at the center of his command deck, his golden eyes glowing with determination. "They think they can strike and vanish," he growled. "But we've outwitted their tricks. Activate the disruptor." The massive device at the carrier's core began to hum, its energy building as waves of distortion spread through the rift. The effects were immediate. Several phantom ships flickered on Trinaxian scanners, their cloaking systems struggling to compensate. On board the silent Requiem, warnings blared. "Admiral, we're losing cover," Sarah shouted. Kane gritted his teeth. "We can't let them finish that charge. All ships, focus fire on the disruptor core. Now." The Phantom fleet launched a coordinated attack, firing precision torpedoes and high-energy lasers at the carrier. The rift lit up with the explosions as Trinaxian defenses activated, intercepting most of the incoming fire. "Shields are too strong," Sarah reported. "We can't break through." "Then we adapt," Kane replied. "Send in the ghost units." The ghost units. Deep within the Phantom fleet's formation, specialized stealth ships known as ghost units emerge. Smaller and faster than the rest, these vessels were designed for infiltration and sabotage. Their mission: breach the carrier's defenses and disable the disruptor from within. Ensign Riley, now piloting a ghost unit, led his team toward the massive warship. "Stay close and stick to the shadows," he instructed. "We'll only get one shot at this." The ghost units weaved through the chaos, dodging debris and enemy fire as they approached the carrier's hull. Using magnetic clamps, they latched onto the surface and began cutting through the armor with precision tools. Inside the carrier, Trinaxian engineers scrambled to maintain the disruptor's charge. The humming grew louder, and the distortion waves intensified, revealing more phantom ships with each pulse. "Admiral," Sarah said, "we've got maybe 5 minutes before we're fully exposed." Kane's face was a mask of focus. "That's all we need." "Riley, what's your status?" "Making entry now," Riley replied, his voice steady despite the tension. He and his team breached the hull and entered the ship's dark interior, moving swiftly through narrow corridors. The sabotage. The ghost unit operatives worked with precision, planting charges on critical systems and avoiding patrols. The carrier's interior was a maze of twisting passageways, glowing with the faint, pulsing light of the disruptor core. As they reached the core chamber, Riley paused. The room was massive, its center dominated by a swirling sphere of energy. Trinaxian guards patrolled the perimeter, their weapons ready. "We've got company," Riley whispered. "Stay low and wait for my signal." The team moved into position, their stealth suits blending with the shadows. Riley scanned the chamber, spotting the disruptor's control console. If they could overload the core, it would take the entire ship with it. He raised a hand, signaling his team to move. Silently, they disabled the guards one by one, their weapons leaving no trace of the confrontation. Riley reached the console and began inputting commands, his fingers moving with practiced speed. "Charges are set," one of his teammates reported. "Ready on your mark." Riley glanced at his timer. The disruptor's charge was seconds from completion. "Blow it," he ordered. The explosion. The charges detonated, sending shockwaves through the carrier. The disruptor core began to destabilize, its energy spiraling out of control. Alarms blared as Trinaxian crew members shouted in panic, their systems failing. On board the silent Requiem, Sarah's console lit up. "The disruptor is offline. Their ship is going critical." Kane gave a single nod. "All units, fall back. Let's give them a light show." The Phantom fleet retreated, their cloaking systems stabilizing as the disruptor's influence waned. From a safe distance, they watched as the command carrier erupted in a blinding explosion, taking several nearby Trinaxian ships with it. Victory in the rift. The battlefield fell silent once more, the Trinaxian fleet broken and scattered. On the silent Requiem, Kane allowed himself a brief moment of relief. "We've crippled their forces," Sarah said, her voice tinged with awe. "But the Second Fleet is still en route." Kane's expression hardened. "Then we prepare for the final phase. This isn't over." As the Phantom Fleet regrouped, the galaxy began to take notice. Humanity, once mocked and underestimated, had proven that shadows could hold unimaginable power, and the Trinaxians weren't the only ones watching. Retribution in silence. The remains of the Trinaxian fleet drifted in the void, broken and burning. The Phantom Fleet had vanished again, leaving behind only wreckage and unanswered questions. But Admiral Kane knew the fight was far from over. The second Trinaxian fleet, larger and more advanced, was already closing in. On board the silent Requiem, Kane stood at the center of the bridge, his expression steely as he surveyed the tactical hologram. The incoming enemy force was overwhelming. Thousands of ships with advanced detection and combat systems. The rift had given them cover before, but now it would be a battleground. "Time to enemy contact," Kane asked. Lieutenant Sarah, seated at her console, replied, "3 hours, sir. They'll push straight through the rift." Kane's gaze darkened. "Good. Let them come." The calm before the storm. The Phantom Fleet was a flurry of activity as engineers worked to repair damaged ships and restock supplies. On board the flagship, the crew prepared for what they all knew could be their final mission. Yet despite the tension, there was no fear, only determination. Kane addressed the fleet through the comm system. "You've already accomplished what the galaxy thought was impossible, but this isn't just about Earth anymore. The Trinaxians want to make us an example. They think they can break us. They're wrong." His words carried weight, resonating with the crew. "We will hit them where it hurts, and when we're done, the galaxy will remember that humanity is not to be mocked. This is our stand. Let's make it one for the history books." The final assault. The Trinaxian Second Fleet arrived with precision, their ships fanning out in a massive formation. At its center was the Dominion's Wrath, a supercarrier bristling with firepower and advanced sensor arrays. High Admiral Velox, furious after his earlier defeat, stood on the command deck, his claws gripping the armrests of his chair. "This time, there will be no shadows," Velox growled. "No tricks. Burn the rift. Flush them out." The Trinaxians unleashed a wave of energy charges into the rift, destabilizing the surrounding anomalies. The void lit up with blinding flashes as asteroids shattered and gravitational surges roared. But the Phantom Fleet remained hidden, moving carefully through the chaos. Humanity strikes back. As the Trinaxian fleet pushed deeper into the rift, the Phantom Fleet executed Phase 4, a counter-assault designed to dismantle the enemy from within. Small, cloaked vessels infiltrated the enemy formation, planting explosive charges on key ships. At the same time, drone swarms disrupted communication and targeting systems. The first explosions rocked the Trinaxian fleet, spreading confusion. Ships veered off course, colliding with one another as their systems failed. Velox snarled, slamming his fist against the console. "Find them. Destroy them." But the Phantom Fleet didn't fight fair. They didn't hold their ground or engage directly. Instead, they struck and disappeared, their cloaking systems making them ghosts. The Trinaxians were fighting shadows, and it was tearing their fleet apart. A sacrifice for victory. Despite their success, the Phantom Fleet was not without losses. A Trinaxian battleship managed to land a lucky hit on one of the stealth carriers, disabling its cloaking systems. The Spectre's veil became a beacon for enemy fire, drawing attention away from the rest of the fleet. "Admiral, the Spectre's veil is compromised," Sarah said, her voice tight. "They're requesting permission to hold position and cover our retreat." Kane hesitated for only a moment. "Permission granted. Tell them their sacrifice won't be in vain." The Spectre's veil held its ground, its crew firing relentlessly as waves of Trinaxian ships converged on their position. The distraction gave the rest of the Phantom Fleet time to regroup and prepare for the final strike. The silent Requiem's gambit. Kane's plan hinged on one final desperate maneuver. The silent Requiem would infiltrate the heart of the Trinaxian fleet, using its advanced cloaking to get close to the Dominion's wrath. Once there, they would deploy a device known as the Singularity Driver, a prototype weapon capable of generating a controlled black hole. "It's a one-shot weapon," Sarah reminded him as the crew prepared the device. "If it fails." "It won't," Kane said firmly. "We don't have the luxury of failure." The silent Requiem slipped through the chaos, narrowly avoiding detection as it closed in on the Trinaxian flagship. On board the Dominion's Wrath, Volox watched the battle unfold, unaware of the danger lurking just outside his viewport. The endgame. The silent Requiem, decloaked only for a moment, just long enough to deploy the Singularity Driver. The device latched onto the hull of the Dominion's Wrath, its core beginning to spin as it built up energy. Alarms blared across the Trinaxian fleet as the massive black hole began to form. "Admiral Volox, we've detected," a Trinaxian officer began, but it was too late. The black hole erupted, its gravitational pull tearing through the Dominion's Wrath and the surrounding ships. The Trinaxian fleet, already in disarray, fell into complete chaos as the Singularity consumed everything in its path. On board the silent Requiem, Kane watched the destruction from a safe distance. The cost had been high, but the victory was decisive. The Trinaxian fleet was shattered, their ambitions crushed. The aftermath. The Phantom fleet regrouped in the quiet of the rift, their remaining ships battered but triumphant. Humanity had not only survived, but proven its strength to the galaxy. Back on Earth, the news of the victory spread like wildfire. The Galactic Assembly, once mocking and dismissive of humanity, now regarded them with a newfound respect and fear. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the silent Requiem, his gaze fixed on the stars. He knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once, but never again. "Let them remember," Kane said quietly. "We are the shadows they should fear."